Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. Today I went to the Asian market, so I think this is like Vietnamese style. It's teriyaki chicken with teriyaki sauce, and then I put a little bit of sriracha. This is like a little cucumber tomato. I think these are like pickled carrots. Let me see. Yeah, they're pickled. And then I think that's fish sauce. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be eating that. And then I have Vietnamese spring rolls. And these are shrimp and tofu. And then this is the Vietnamese peanut sauce that it comes with. And then I added a little bit of this like chili. What is this? Chili garlic sauce. It's my favorite to make it a little bit spicy. And then to drink, I am having raspberry lemonade Crystal Light. So let me try this first. Today I'm also doing a true crime, so if you stick around towards the second half of this video, I will be doing the true crime. Yeah, so let's start eating. This is my first time getting this, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna like it. Oh no, the chicken isn't seasoned very well. It's okay. These are mostly what I like anyways. So I hope you guys had a good weekend. Let me know what you guys did. Let me know how you guys are doing. You know what? I need to take this out. Just shrimp and tofu. These are so good. There's a lot of sauce on this. So my weekend was, my Saturday anyways, was busy. Sophia had her first tournament for volleyball. First tournament of the season. And they won half of their games. So that was pretty exciting. I forgot a napkin. Alright, so I'm gonna get right into this true crime because I have a lot of information. So the true crime I'm doing is the murder of Vera Jo Regal. And it was actually requested by one of you guys, so thank you for this request. Over researching it the past week, this case like angers me because I feel like justice was not served. And you'll see why. Turn that off. And I have notes written down here because there's just so much information. A lot of my information I got from a documentary that you can find on Amazon Prime. It's called Goodnight Sugar Babe. So I got a lot of information from that documentary, which was actually filmed by somebody who was from the town. And he went around filming everybody who was involved with the case and who was related to Vera after the fact. Yeah, so if you guys are interested, you guys can go check out that movie. So yeah, I tried to do, there's so much information, but I'm gonna only be talking about the important details. Yeah, so if there's anything that I left out that you feel is important to this case that maybe I forgot, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Okay, so Vera Jo was 24 at the time of her death. She was found murdered along the train tracks. She was born and raised in Findlay, Ohio, where she grew up with her mom. And by the age of 11, she was sexually abused by her father, who is now serving a prison sentence for that crime. So she had kind of, a rough childhood. But nonetheless, she was still like a bubbly person. She was diagnosed with ADHD when she was young, and she also had a low IQ. So even though she had a low IQ, she was still able to graduate high school, get her diploma. She had the help of teachers and special classes, so she was able to graduate. And experts said that her IQ was that of an 8th grader, so like 13, 14-year-old. So by the time she graduated at the age of 18 or 19, she had the mentality of a 13 or 14-year-old. At the age of 19, she started dating this boy named Zachary Brooks, who at the time was only 13 years old, which you think, that's 6 years apart. He's a minor. She's 13, she's 19, he's 13. But because she had the mentality of a 13-year-old, her family and his family and the neighbors, they all thought it was okay, So they let Vera date Zachary. Now, it was said that Vera became estranged from her mom. It doesn't say what exactly happened, but nonetheless, Vera ended up moving in with Zach and his mom and some of his other family members that lived there. His mom's name was Sherry Brooks, also known as Sugar Babe by the community. And just to give you an idea of how sick this woman is, she got the name Sugar Babe from her father, who had sexually abused her at a young age. And she kept the name, which disgusts me. That just goes to show you her mentality. So Sherry, She had, from a young age, been obsessed with little, like, baby girls, from a very young age. She had 5 kids that were taken away from her. One of them was a daughter, the rest were boys. And her daughter being taken away from her had the most effect on her mentality. So much so that she would encourage her sons. So she ended up having another round of children. And the reason why her first round of children got taken away is because family members had caught Sherry doing, some very inappropriate things, allegedly. It was never able to be proven, but nonetheless, her children got taken away. And so she ended up remarrying and had another round of boys. But she just had an obsession with baby girls, so much so that she would encourage her sons to get pregnant with their girlfriends. And that includes Zach and Vera. Sherry was thought to be the mastermind, like, manipulator of this cult-like family. Her oldest son even compared their family to that of the Manson family. But Sherry just had this way of being able to manipulate people into doing her dirty work for her and just to get what she wants, Her whole family was known very well by the community and by the police. They were in and out of custody for drug trafficking. Sherry had her instances with the child abuse and stuff like that, So her family was very well known, and you didn't want to mess with this family. There was about 10 people living at the Brooks family home at one given time. It wasn't very well kept. They had animals who they just let do their business inside the house wherever they wanted. And that's where Vera was staying. There's even reports that some of her family members, including Sherry, they claim to be in a neighborhood gang called the Crypt. Living in the house with Vera and Zach and Sherry were Zach's older brothers. There was a younger brother there also. I'm not going to go into names because there's just so many people that are involved in this. So not long after Vera moved in, she started being physically abused. She was treated like a slave, pretty much. And nobody really did anything to help her. So the brothers that were living there, even there was one of the brothers had a wife. She was living there. They all witnessed this abuse that was going on. Some would partake in it. And Vera would call the police sometimes. And she would say that, she's been beaten up and she's being held captive against her will. But by the time the police would show up, Sherry would have coerced and forced Vera to say that she was happy living where she was and it was a mistake, that she even called the police. And so when the police showed up, they could obviously see that, she was very malnourished, she was beaten, she had bruises. But because Vera was 24 years old, considered an adult, and had verbally said that she was happy living where she was, they couldn't take her out of the house. So they left. And this happened, the police received dozens of calls. So much that when the operators would receive the phone calls, they would kind of consider it an annoyance because it's like, oh, here we go again. Like, what's going on now? Um, yeah, so it happened so often, but each time Vera would always say that she was happy living where she was. Now remember, this is a girl who has the mentality of an eighth grader. So she's gonna do and say whatever she's told to do, pretty much, you know? Now it was said that Vera was on disability because of her, you know, her low mentality, her low IQ. She was receiving a disability check, which would go to Sherry. And that's like part of the reason why she was living with the Brooks family, is because she had a disability check coming in every month. And that's what, you know, they would be able to live off of that. I guess a lot of people, if not everybody in that house, had disability, were on disability receiving checks. So this abuse went on for years. So she moved in to the Brooks family house at the age of 19. Then by the age of 22, Vera did eventually end up getting pregnant. And this is where things start to take a turn. Vera was really happy that she had become pregnant, you know. But Sherry, she had this obsession with babies, and she would tell Vera, that's my baby. She would even tell other people that before the baby was even born, that the baby in Vera's belly was hers. And so she became obsessed. So obsessed that over a month before the baby was due, Sherry had forced Vera to do this old wives' tale. So there's an old wives' tale that if you take a couple tablespoons of castor oil, it will help induce labor. Well, Sherry had made Vera, she forced Vera to do exactly that. Whatever happens, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. A lot of people use that to induce labor, especially if they've gone past their due date, you know. So Sherry forced Vera to do that, but she was forced to take 3 bottles of castor oil. This is how crazy that lady is. So instead of the original 2 tablespoons, Vera drank 3 bottles of castor oil. And the reason why Sherry wanted to induce labor is because she wanted this baby to be born on Sherry's birthday. Well, the baby ended up not being born until the day after Sherry's birthday, but she was still ecstatic about that. Sherry was ecstatic. Now, when the baby was born, guess who named the baby? It wasn't Vera. It was Sherry. This is just, I get so irritated, like angry thinking about this. Vera wasn't even able to name her own baby. Like, that's how manipulated and how. So once the baby was born, Sherry claimed it as hers. Sherry ended up naming her Willadine. And then after Vera gave birth, things just got worse. I mean, beatings every single day, just domestic violence. Zachary would let his brothers and his friends abuse her sexually also. And it seemed that whenever something bad happened, it was always somehow Vera's fault. It was blamed on Vera. So this like enticed people, family members, friends of family members, to partake in the beatings and abuse of Vera, because Sherry somehow would make up these stories and somehow coerce and entice and make it seem like it was okay that, you know, the abuse and everything that was going on against Vera was okay. Like, it's just, I don't even have words. Vera was treated like a slave. So Sherry, she had, I think it was type 2 diabetes, and she had issues with her feet. So her feet needed to be rubbed. They needed to be very, taken care of. And that was Vera's job every single night. Sherry seems to think that Vera enjoyed doing it, but other family members said, no, like, who's going to enjoy doing that? Rubbing somebody's feet every single night, being forced to do that. So she was treated like a slave. She was abused. She wasn't allowed to talk or touch, hold, feed her own baby. If Willadine, like, went to her, Vera had to be like, no, go to Sherry. Like, you can't be with me. Like, can you imagine rejecting your own flesh and blood, your own daughter? How sad. How sad. Vera was also forced. So they had a pig that lived in the house, and it slept in a closet. Vera was forced to sleep in that same closet where the pig slept. And this pig was also able to, go to the bathroom wherever it pleased. And, nothing was ever kept in that house. So once Vera gave birth, it was clear to everybody that Sherry wanted Willadine all to herself. She claimed Willadine as hers. She would tell everybody that she was Willadine's mom. Vera wasn't able to speak or hold. She wasn't able to care for Willadine at all. So in Sherry's mind, she needed Vera to be gone so that Willadine could be all hers. Okay, let's eat. So, Sherry needed to come up with a plan to get rid of Vera. A little while before Vera's murder, Zachary's cousin Danny had gotten out of prison. He was in prison for, I believe, burglary. But he had gotten out of prison, and he was 21 years old. He started dating this 17-year-old girl named Nicole. And they ended up living at the Brooks family home a few weeks before Vera's murder happened. Now, Danny and Nicole would also partake in the beatings of Vera, and they seemed to get off on it because it was said that they would like get excited after beating them, and then they'd go and have intercourse in the room next door, and then they'd like come back and continue to beat her. So Sherry had hatched a plan to get rid of Vera. Now, she somehow was able to convince that Vera was the one to blame for her oldest son, whose name was Punky. He had been killed in an accident. So Sherry somehow convinced everybody in the household that Vera was the one who killed Punky. Now, what happened to Punky, he was walking with his girlfriend at the time. They were walking around the side of the road when a taxi cab had lost control of the car and swerved, ending up hitting and killing Punky. They had a funeral for him. And so at the time when this happened, Sherry, didn't think it was an accident. She thought that it was Punky's girlfriend who had pushed Punky out in front of the cab, causing him to be hit. That's what Sherry put in her mind at the time of his death. Well, now this time, because she needed Vera to be gone so she could have Willadine all to herself, she convinced Danny and Nicole and everybody else in the house that it wasn't Punky's girlfriend. It was Vera who was walking with Punky that night. And Vera is the one that pushed Punky out in front of the taxi cab. So naturally, everybody's thinking that Vera is the cause of Punky's death. So they're going to want retaliation. They're going to want revenge. And that's exactly how Sherry wanted everything to play out. And Danny, he was the closest to Punky. And so, of course, Danny was going to be the one to do it, along with his girlfriend. This rice is sticky. So on the night of March 26th at around 9 o'clock p.m., after being beaten all day, and because the night before she had set off a can of mace, so she was beaten all day that day, and then the day before, and then all day the next day. And around 9 o'clock that night, Danny and Zachary and Nicole told Vera to get her shoes on. They were going to go for a walk. Vera resisted getting her shoes on. She didn't want to go. She even tried to get one of Zachary's older brothers to go with them because she just had this feeling. She didn't want to go. She most likely had that feeling that something bad was going to happen. So she tried to look for help from one of Zach's other brothers, from his wife, and she didn't help her. She looked for help from Zachary's oldest brother, one of his older brothers, and he said he was going to go. So he went back to go get his shoes on, but Zachary had stopped him from going with them. So Vera ended up leaving with Zachary, Danny, and Nicole, and nobody did anything to intervene. So all four of them left the house that night. Vera was led to some nearby train tracks. And that's where her final moments of life would be. She was forced to undress herself because the knife that Danny had brought from the kitchen was too dull to penetrate through the clothes. So she was forced to undress herself. And then that's when Danny and Nicole took turns stabbing her. Vera was begging for her life, but to no avail. So once Danny and Nicole were done, they left her body perpendicular. So the train tracks are like this. They left her body like this over the train tracks, hoping that when the train came, that her body would be destroyed and unable to be identified. So yeah, that was their plan. So they left her, and all three of them went back to a house party where Danny's sister was, and she could tell that something was off, and that's where Danny and Zachary both confessed to killing Vera. Now, around 2 a.m., the train operator the train operator was coming to the area where Vera's body was, and he could see it from a distance, and he was able to slow down, but not enough to stop before passing her body. Now, Vera's body was not perpendicular anymore. She was actually curled up in between the train tracks. So this means that Vera had enough life in her after they left her to curl up and lay in between the train tracks. Luckily, she was small enough to where when the train went over her body, there was a 1-inch clearance. So her body was not destroyed by the train, luckily. So at the crime scene, there was her clothes scattered all over, her shoes. The knife had been found in the body of water that was there by the train tracks. And just a bloody mess. Now, less than 24 hours after Vera's body was found, Sherry and Zachary both called the state to get parental rights of Willadine. Less than 24 hours this was happening. But luckily the state declined, and Willadine was taken out of the house and put up for adoption. So that is really good. So she can have a fair chance at living a somewhat normal life. So Danny and Nicole were then later arrested. You see, Danny's sister had ended up going to the police with the information that she had from the night before, and Danny and Nicole were arrested. And by the time everything had gone down, Sherry had already hatched a story of what everybody was going to say. So everybody was going to corroborate the same story, and everybody did. And that story was that Vera had set off the can of mace, causing one of Zachary's brother's wife, who was pregnant, to go to the hospital and she had a miscarriage. So that was one thing. And then Vera, that same night, left with a boyfriend that nobody knew about, but she ended up leaving with a boyfriend and never came back to the house. So that was their story. And that is what Danny and Nicole both told police. That's what everybody told police. Everybody corroborated that story. But later, Danny confessed, saying that, that story wasn't true. What actually happened was that he was coerced. He was under the influence of drugs and alcohol and other people, meaning Sherry and Zachary, to murder Vera. So Danny, he was convicted. He is spending his life in prison, although in 40 years he is eligible for parole, which I think is too easy. I think he should be in there for life. And Nicole, she was tried as an adult because, remember, she was only 17. So she was 17 at the time this all happened. So she was tried as an adult. She was convicted. But for the role that she played, she only got 23 years, which is like... And this girl, she showed no remorse. There's pictures of her at the party. I think even her mugshot is her smiling, like she's happy. She's proud of what she did. It's just sick. And I think 23 years is way too easy on her. She should have gotten life as well, without parole. So you're probably asking, what about Sherry and Zachary? This is the part that makes me so mad. Sherry pretty much just got a slap on the hand. She didn't have any time served. She was charged with obstruction of justice, but she just got probation. That's it. And Zachary, he got for lying to the cops. And Sherry was the mastermind. She's the one that wanted Vera gone. It was all her plan all along to get rid of Vera so she could have Willadine for herself. That was her plan. But she has never been charged. Nobody in the house was charged. It's just, there's so many people that could have stepped in and said, hey, this is wrong. But because of, this is why they call it like a cult-like family, because they all believed in loyalty. You had to be loyal to your family. You had to, do what Sherry said. She was the mastermind of everything. And nobody stepped in. Nobody helped her. She had a mental disability. It's just really sad. It's just so sad. So shortly after Vera's death and also at the trial, the police had found a note that Vera had written to Willadine. They found the note in Vera's purse, and the note read, and I quote, "I love you, Willadine. You're a good little baby to us. I'm glad to be your mommy, and I'm glad that I had you on November 4th at 4:16 a.m. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 inches long. Mommy loves you." That is so sad. And when I hear this, I'm thinking, like, I feel like she wrote this knowing that she was gonna die. And she wrote it hoping for it to be found. That's just the feeling that I get when I read that. I feel like Vera knew something was gonna happen. It's not known when the note was written, but I'm sure if this was found by Sherry, she would have gotten beaten for it. It would have been ripped up and thrown away, you know? But I feel like Vera wrote this to Willadine because she knew that something bad was going to happen. She wasn't going to make it. And those were the words that she wanted Willadine to know, that she loved her and that she was her mom, not Sherry. So, yeah, that's all I have on this case. Oh, let me know your thoughts on it down below. And if you guys want to see the documentary, it is on Amazon Prime TV or whatever it's called. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I didn't even eat a whole lot, I feel like. But yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys probably on Wednesday with some wings and a new video. All right. Love you guys. Bye.